My name is Ava Morgan, and I am 28 years old. My older sister called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was sitting at my kitchen table in the little rented condo I kept just outside Duck, trying to finish a client report for work. The number lit up the screen like it always did when she wanted something, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Ava, you need to get over to the main villa right now, my older sister said the second I answered. No hello, no small talk, just that clipped, urgent tone she used when she had already decided I was going to fix whatever mess she had made. We have a situation with the tax returns on the properties. The numbers are off, and if we don't handle it today, the whole thing could blow up. I need you to sign some amended forms. You're the only one whose name isn't already all over the questionable parts. I stared at the half-finished spreadsheet on my laptop. My chest went tight in that familiar way it always did when my older sister framed her problems as my responsibility. What kind of discrepancy, I asked, keeping my voice even? The kind that makes the IRS ask questions we don't want to answer, she said. Look, the villas are the only real security this family has left. If you don't help clean this up, we could lose everything. Mom's already here. We're waiting on you. She hung up before I could ask another question. If you have ever been the person the rest of your family calls when the books don't balance and someone needs to take the hit, you know exactly how that phone call landed. I sat there for a full minute, with the phone still in my hand, tasting something bitter at the back of my throat. Then I closed the laptop, grabbed my keys, and drove the 10 minutes to the largest of the waterfront villas we supposedly owned. The house sat right on the Sound in tuckle glass and cedar and wide decks that looked expensive in photographs. I had always thought of these places as our family's quiet proof that we had made it. 5 villas across the Outer Banks, bought over the years, rented out at premium rates, the kind of portfolio that let my parents talk about legacy and security. Like those words meant something solid. I parked in the gravel drive and walked in through the side door that was never locked when family was expected. My mother was already in the great room, standing at the big island with a stack of papers spread out in front of her. My older sister stood beside her, arms crossed, looking like she had been rehearsing this conversation for hours. Sit down, my mother said. Not hi, how are you? Not thanks for coming. Just sit down like I was still 12 and she was still in charge of every room I walked into. I stayed standing. What exactly am I signing? My older sister pushed a thick packet toward me. Amended tax returns for the last 3 years on 2 of the villas. The rental income was reported higher than it actually came in. We need to adjust the numbers before anyone starts asking why the depreciation schedules don't match the loan documents. Your name isn't on the original filings the way ours are. So if you sign as the one who caught the error and corrected it, it looks cleaner. I picked up the top page and scanned it. The numbers were off by enough to matter. Way off. The kind of off that made my stomach drop. You want me to sign something that says, I'm the one who misreported income, I asked? My voice came out flatter than I expected. My older sister gave a short, impatient laugh. Don't be dramatic, it's not like that. It's just paperwork that protects the family. You've always been the careful one with numbers. This is you doing what you're good at." My mother nodded like that settled it. "We're not asking you to lie, Ava. We're asking you to help us fix a mistake before it becomes a bigger problem. The villas are everything we have. If the banks or the IRS start digging, we could lose them all. You don't want that on your conscience." There it was. The demand dressed up as concern. The quiet implication that if I didn't sign, whatever happened next would be my fault. I felt something sharp and sarcastic rise in my chest, the same feeling I got every time they needed me to be the responsible one, while they had already decided what responsible looked like. I set the papers back on the island without signing. I'm not putting my name on anything until I understand every line. Give me a copy. I'll look at it tonight. My older sister's face tightened. There isn't time for you to play accountant. We need this done before the weekend. Then it can wait until I've read it, I said. I turned to leave before either of them could say anything else that would make me want to throw the whole stack into the sound. On the drive back to my condo, the sarcasm in my head got louder. Of course, the family fortune needed me to rescue it at the last minute. Of course, the mistake was something only I could fix by signing away whatever protection my name might have given me. I had spent years believing these villas were the one thing that actually belonged to all of us. The thing that proved we were more than just another Outer Banks family, scraping by on summer rentals. Turns out, the numbers had been telling a different story for a while. I just hadn't been looking closely enough. That night, I spread the papers across my kitchen table under the cheap lamp I had bought at a yard sale. The discrepancy wasn't small. Someone had reported rental income that didn't match the actual deposits I could see from the property management statements I still had access to. The depreciation claimed on improvements that never showed up in any contractor invoices I could find. It wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping. It looked deliberate. I picked up my phone and called Sophia Lang. She was the only accountant I trusted outside the family circle, the one I had used for my own small business taxes, since I started freelancing 2 years earlier. She answered on the third ring, sounding tired, but not surprised to hear from me. "Sophia, I need you to look at something for me," I said. "Family tax stuff. It doesn't add up." She was quiet for a second. "Send me what you have. I'll clear my morning." I scanned and emailed the pages right then. While the files went through, I opened my laptop and started pulling every statement I could find from the shared family folders. The more I looked, the colder the feeling in my stomach got. The villas weren't just underwater. The equity we had all been told existed was built on numbers that didn't match reality. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Brooke Ellison, a woman who had been at every family barbecue and holiday dinner for as long as I could remember. "Hope everything's okay with the properties. I heard there might be some issues. I'm going to keep a little distance for now. You understand." I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Brooke had been the one who always brought extra potato salad and asked how my freelance work was going. Now she was keeping distance. One text and the circle was already closing. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, Sophia called before 8. Her voice was careful in a way that made me sit up straighter at the table. "Ava, these returns, Someone has been very careful about what they showed and what they hid. The discrepancy isn't an accident. And the way the loans are structured against the reported values, this isn't something that gets fixed with one signature. This is the kind of thing that unravels if anyone starts pulling threads. I close my eyes and let the sarcasm rise again, bitter and familiar. My older sister had called it a simple paperwork problem. My mother had called it family loyalty. Both of them had looked me in the eye and asked me to be the one who made it disappear. I thanked Sophia, told her I would get back to her, and hung up. Then I sat at my table with the papers spread out and the text from Brooke still sitting in my phone, and I made the first decision that actually belonged to me. I was not signing anything. Not until I knew exactly what they had been hiding and why they thought I would be the one to take the fall for it. The morning after I decided not to sign, I woke up with the same bitter taste in my mouth that had been there since the phone call. I made coffee I barely tasted and spread every page Sophia had flagged across the table again. The discrepancy wasn't just sloppy. Someone had reported rental income that never hit the accounts I could verify, and the loan applications listed property values that didn't match any recent appraisals I could find in the shared folders. The family fortune we had all been told to protect was built on paper that didn't hold up to basic addition. I called Sophia and asked if she could meet me in person. She suggested a small coffee shop 2 blocks from the water in Duck, the kind of place that stayed quiet on weekday mornings. When I walked in, she was already at a corner table, with her laptop open and a second coffee waiting for me. She didn't waste time on small talk. I pulled the public records on the 2 villas, with the biggest gaps, she said, turning the screen so I could see. The loan-to-value ratios they used 3 years ago don't match the actual rental history. Someone inflated the income projections to get better terms, and your name appears on one of the personal guarantee addendums from last year. Did you sign that? I leaned in. The signature line had my name typed beneath it, but the handwriting didn't look like mine. Close enough to pass a quick glance, not close enough to be real. My stomach turned over once hard. I never signed anything like that, I said. The words came out flat. They never even asked me. Sophia sat back. Her expression stayed careful, but her voice dropped. Ava, I need to tell you something. Your older sister came to me about 8 months ago. She wanted me to restructure the reporting on one of the properties, so the cash flow looked stronger for a refinance. I told her I wouldn't touch it without seeing the actual deposits. She got angry and said she'd find someone else who understood family loyalty. I should have told you then. I'm sorry I didn't. There it was. The first crack in the story, they had sold me. My older sister hadn't just made a mistake she needed me to clean up. She had tried to pull Sophia into it first, and only turned to me when that failed. I felt the sarcasm rise sharp and automatic. Of course she had. When the easy route closed, she came for the one person who had spent years being the reliable one. I thanked Sophia, paid for both coffees, and left with a copy of everything she had pulled. On the drive back to my condo, my phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. The text that followed 30 seconds later was short. We need an answer today. This isn't something you can keep putting off. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started a new folder on my desktop. I labeled it with the date and nothing else. Then I began screenshotting every statement, every loan document, every email thread I could still access from the family accounts before anyone thought to change the passwords. I worked methodically, the way I used to organize client files when I first started freelancing. One discrepancy at a time. One lie at a time. By late afternoon, another message arrived. This one from Nathan Cole, a guy who had helped manage summer rentals for one of the smaller villas a few seasons back. We had always been friendly. His text was even shorter than Brooke's. Heard there's trouble with the big properties. Probably best if I stay out of it for now. Good luck. 2 friends in 2 days. The circle was shrinking exactly the way my older sister had probably expected it would. People who had eaten at our table and called us family were already choosing the version of the story that kept them comfortable. I set the phone face down and kept saving files. That evening, my older sister showed up at my condo without calling first. She knocked like she still had the right to walk in whenever she wanted. When I opened the door, she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation and closed it behind her. "You're making this harder than it has to be," she said. Her voice had that tight, reasonable tone she used when she wanted to sound like the adult in the room. "Mom is stressed. The banks are asking questions. If you just sign the amendments, we can move on and no one gets hurt." I stayed by the door. "You put my name on a personal guarantee I never saw. That's not a mistake. That's something else." Her eyes flicked to the papers still spread across my table. For half a second, her face changed just enough for me to see the calculation underneath the concern. Then the mask came back. "You're reading things wrong," she said. "Those documents were prepared months ago. We were going to tell you. We just needed the timing to be right." I let the sarcasm out quiet and cold, the timing to be right for me to take the fall if anyone started asking questions. "That's what you mean." She didn't deny it. She just looked at me like I was the one being difficult. "You always do this. You turn everything into a fight. We're trying to protect what's left of this family, and you're sitting here with your spreadsheets, acting like you're the only one who cares about the truth." My mother's voice came through the phone my older sister was holding. She must have dialed before she knocked. "Ava, sweetheart, please. We raised you to understand that sometimes you have to put the family first. This is one of those times." I looked at the phone, then at my older sister standing in my living room like she still owned a piece of me. Something in my chest settled into a colder, clearer place than it had been the day before. I'm not signing anything until I know exactly what I'm signing and why my name is already on documents I never touched, I said. "And if you keep showing up here, uninvited, I'll start locking the door." My older sister's mouth tightened into a line I recognized from every argument we had ever had. She turned without another word and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her with a sound that felt final in a way I hadn't expected. I stood there for a long minute after she left, listening to the quiet. Then I picked up my phone and called Elena Vargas. She was an attorney I had met through a client 2 years earlier, someone who handled small business and real estate disputes, and didn't mind straightforward questions. I told her I needed to understand what it meant if my name was already on loan documents I had never signed, and whether signing amended tax returns could make that worse. She agreed to meet me the next morning at her office in Nag's Head. "Bring everything you have," she said, "and don't sign a single thing until we talk." That night, I slept for the first time in 3 days. Not well, but enough. The next morning, Eleanor's office smelled like old coffee and printer toner. She read through the documents Sophia had flagged, and the ones I had pulled myself without saying much at first. When she finally looked up, her expression was the same careful one Sophia had worn at the coffee shop. "This isn't just bad bookkeeping," she said. "If the income was inflated to secure the loans, and your name is on a guarantee you didn't sign, that's potential fraud. And if they're asking you to amend the returns in a way that shifts the liability onto you, that's them trying to create a paper trail that protects the people who actually did the filing. You signing anything right now could make you look complicit instead of corrective." I nodded. The sarcasm that had been my constant companion for the last week felt quieter now, replaced by something steadier. "What do I do?" "You document everything Elna said. Every conversation, every text, every file you can still access. And you don't go back to that villa alone. If they push again, refer them to me. I'll send a letter stating that any further communication goes through counsel." I left her office with a folder of notes and a new phone number for Marcus Reed, the property manager, who had handled maintenance on the largest villa for the last 4 years. Eleanor said he had called her once before about discrepancies in the maintenance invoices versus what the owners claimed. She thought he might have pieces I didn't. I drove straight to the small office he kept near the marina. Marcus was in his late 40s, quite the kind of man who noticed things, because noticing things was how he kept the properties standing. When I told him what I was looking for, he didn't ask why. He just pulled a thick binder from a locked cabinet and set it on the desk between us. "Your older sister told me last year to stop sending the detailed expense reports to the family email and to send a summary instead," he said. "She said it was to keep things simpler. But the summaries never matched what I was actually spending on repairs. I kept the originals anyway. Figured someone might need them someday." He slid the binder toward me. Inside were invoices, receipts, and photographs of work that had been done and work that had been claimed, but never happened. The gap between what had been reported to the banks and what had actually been spent was larger than I had let myself imagine. I took pictures of the pages with my phone. Marcus watched without commenting until I was finished. "Whatever you're doing with this," he said, "be careful. People who build things on paper don't like it when someone starts reading the fine print." I thanked him and left. On the drive back, the full shape of it finally settled into place. My older sister hadn't just made mistakes she needed me to clean up. She had spent years constructing a version of the family fortune that only existed if no one looked too closely. And when the version started to crack, she and my mother had decided the cleanest fix was to hand me the pen and let me become the person the discrepancies belonged to. I parked in front of my condo and sat with the engine off for a long time. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. The bitter feeling was still there, but it had changed shape. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was something colder and more useful. My phone buzzed with a new text from my older sister. I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it would say. Another version of the same demand, wrapped in the same language, about family and loyalty, and how I was the only one who could make this go away. I opened the message anyway. This is the last time I'm asking nicely. Sign the papers, or we are done protecting you from what happens next. I read it twice. Then I turned the phone off and walked inside. The folder with every screenshot and every note from Sophia, from Eleanor, from Marcus, sat on the passenger seat, like something solid I could finally hold on to. I wasn't done yet, but I was finished being the person they called when they needed someone else to carry the lie. I spent the next 2 days turning everything into one clean file Elena could use. Every screenshot, every mismatched invoice from Marcus, every note from Sophia, every text that showed the pressure they had put on me. I worked without rushing, the way I had learned to organize client work, when the numbers mattered more than the noise around them. By the third morning, I had a single USB drive and a printed set of summaries. Eleanor read through it, once made 2 phone calls, and told me we were ready. She arranged the meeting at her office in Nag's Head for the following afternoon. I sent the message through her. One last conversation with counsel present, or I would take the file elsewhere. My older sister replied, first short and sharp. My mother followed with a longer text that tried to sound wounded. I didn't answer either of them directly. When they arrived, they looked smaller than I remembered. My older sister wore the same tight expression she had used at my condo. My mother looked tired in a way that might have moved me once. Elena sat at the head of the small conference table. I sat to her right, with the folder closed in front of me. Marcus Reed was already there, quiet in the corner chair Eleanor had offered him. He had asked to be present once he understood what the file contained. I hadn't expected that, but I didn't argue. My older sister spoke first. This doesn't need to be ugly. We can still fix it the way we planned. I opened the folder and slid the first set of pages across the table. You already tried to fix it by putting my name on a guarantee I never signed. That's not fixing. That's choosing. Who takes the fall? My mother reached for the papers. Her hand stopped halfway when she saw the signature page. Ava, you have to understand how fast things were moving. We were trying to keep the properties. We were trying to protect everyone. Elena's voice stayed level. The documents show the income was overstated on the loan applications by more than $200,000 across 3 years. The maintenance records your property manager kept don't match what was submitted to the lenders. And the amended returns you wanted signed would have shifted the liability onto Ava while clearing the original filers. That's not protection. That's construction of a narrative. My older sister's face flushed. She looked at Marcus like he had betrayed her by being in the room. You had no right to give her those invoices. Marcus met her stare without flinching. I had every right. I kept the real records because I knew the summaries you asked for were never going to match reality. I've been documenting the gap for 18 months. I just didn't know who I could give them to until now. The unexpected weight of that landed harder than anything else in the room. Marcus hadn't just been keeping receipts. He had been building his own file the whole time, waiting for someone who would actually look. He had become the ally none of us had planned on. I slid the next pages forward. Bank statements, the forged guaranteed the text messages, demanding I sign or face the consequences alone. I'm not signing anything. I'm not taking the liability for numbers I didn't create. And I'm done being the person you call when the story needs a new ending. My mother's voice cracked for the first time. You're cutting us off after everything. You're choosing to destroy what's left of this family. I looked at her directly. The sarcasm that had carried me through the worst of it was gone now, replaced by something quieter and harder. I'm choosing not to carry the lie anymore. There's a difference. Elena spoke again. Ava has instructed me to notify the primary lenders of the discrepancies in the supporting documentation. She has also prepared a statement for the IRS if an audit is triggered. She will not be amending any returns in a way that misrepresents the facts. The consequences from here belong to the people who created the original filings. My older sister stood up so fast, her chair scraped the floor. She didn't yell. She just looked at me like she was seeing someone she no longer recognized. You always thought you were better than the rest of us. I guess now you get to prove it. She walked out without waiting for my mother. The door closed behind her with the same final sound it had made at my condo. My mother stayed seated for another minute. She looked at the papers, then at me. I don't know how to fix this, she said. You don't, I answered. Not with me. I'm done. She nodded once, small and tight, and left. I didn't watch her go. I kept my eyes on the folder until the room was quiet again. Marcus stayed long enough to shake my hand. The properties are going to take a hit. Probably a big one. But at least the real numbers are finally on the table. That matters more than I thought it would. After he left, Elena walked me to the door. You did the hard part. The rest is going to be paperwork and waiting. You're not liable for the original filings. That's the important piece. I drove back to Duck in the late afternoon light. The sound was flat and grey under a thin layer of clouds. I parked at the public access near the main villa, but didn't get out. I didn't need to see it again. The version of the family fortune I had believed in had never really existed. What existed now was the truth I had chosen to hold instead of the lie they had tried to hand me. In the weeks that followed, the banks began their reviews. The discrepancies triggered questions that couldn't be answered with another signature. My older sister tried one more time to reach me through a mutual contact. I referred the contact to Eleanor. My mother sent a single letter that I read once and then put away. I didn't answer it. The last family connection I had been carrying finally let go, and the space it left felt cleaner than I had expected. Sophia kept helping me sort my own small finances away from the family accounts. Marcus sent me the final maintenance summaries with a note that simply said, "For your records." Elena handled the formal notifications without ever making me feel like I owed her more than the agreed fee. Brooke Ellison never reached out again. Nathan Cole sent one awkward apology months later that I didn't reply to. The circle had closed, and I had stopped trying to keep it open. I moved into a smaller place, farther from the water. one that was only in my name. The work I had been doing freelance grew steadier once I stopped answering calls that pulled me back into old patterns. Some nights I still felt the sharp edge of what had been taken from me, not the money or the properties, but the years I had spent believing the story they told was the only one that mattered. Those nights passed faster now. The bitterness didn't disappear completely, but it stopped being the loudest voice in the room. One evening in early winter, I stood on the public boardwalk near where the main villa still sat, lights on in the windows, someone else's problem now. The wind off the sound was cold and steady. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you have carried something heavy for a long time and finally set it down because it was never yours to carry in the first place. I'd spent years being the person who made the difficult things disappear for everyone else. I had let them call it loyalty because it was easier than admitting it was control. The day I stopped signing, the day I started keeping my own records, the day I let the truth stand without a prettier story wrapped around it, that was the day the control ended. Detachment didn't feel like loss anymore. It felt like room to breathe. I still think about the version of me who would have signed the papers just to keep the peace. She would have spent the rest of her life managing someone else's consequences and calling it family. I don't miss her. I'm grateful she finally got tired enough to stop. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever been asked to carry a weight that was never yours, so someone else could keep pretending everything was fine, I hope you know you get to set it down. The people who build the lie will call it betrayal when you stop protecting it. Let them. Your only job is to stop letting their story become the one you have to live inside. Tell me your limit. What line would you have refused to cross, no matter who asked? This is a fictional, dramatized story, created for entertainment purposes only. Names and details have been changed. Watching Ava choose herself and walk away from the lie taught me that real strength sometimes looks like quiet refusal. If you love emotional family drama and stories about choosing yourself, this tale will stay with you. Perfect for fans of modern karma stories with heart.